September 30th, 1955. Highway 466, California. A silver Porsche 550 Spyder screaming through the dusty California afternoon at over 90 miles per hour. Behind the wheel, James Dean, 24 years old, the biggest star in America. Beside him, a German mechanic named Rolf Wütherich. At 5:45 p.m., Dean turns to Wütherich and says something. 7 words. The last words he would ever speak. 30 seconds later, metal meets metal at a rural intersection. Dean is gone, but Wütherich survives, broken, bleeding, haunted by what he heard in those final seconds. For decades, he tried to tell the truth. Nobody wanted to listen. Here is the story. Picture this. Hollywood, September 1955. The town is burning with a fever it has never felt before. Television is trying to kill the movies. The old guard, the John Waynes and the Clark Gables, they still command respect. But something new is rising. Something raw. Something dangerous. James Dean, 3 films. That is all it took. East of Eden, it made him a name. A rebel without a cause, made him an icon. And a giant, still being edited in the Warner Brothers lot, would make him immortal, but not in the way anyone expected. Dean is everywhere. Magazine covers, radio interviews, teenage girls screaming his name outside the studio gates, but if you look closer, if you really look, you see the cracks. The exhaustion in his eyes, the way his hands shake when he lights a cigarette. The man is 24 years old and he is being crushed under the weight of what Hollywood has turned him into. He does not sleep. He races cars. He rides motorcycles. He speeds through the night like he is trying to outrun something nobody else can see. His friends worry. His directors worry. Even the studio executives, the ones counting their money, they worry too. Warner Brothers makes him sign a contract clause. No racing while filming. Dean obeys. Barely. The moment a giant raps, he is making calls. He has a race coming up. Salinas, California, October 1st and 2nd, a sports car competition. Amateur stuff, but Dean does not care. He needs the speed. He needs the escape. On September 21st, 1955, Dean picks up his new car, a Porsche 550 Spyder. Silver with red and blue racing stripes. He names it a little bastard and has the nickname painted on the back. Cost him $7,000, which is more than most Americans make in 2 years. But Dean is not most Americans anymore. He hires Rolf Wütherich as his mechanic. Rolf is German. 30 years old. Quiet. Professional. A man who understands engines better than people. Rolf has worked with Porsche. He knows these cars. He knows what they can do. And he knows what they can do to you if you are not careful. September 30th arrives. Friday. Dean is supposed to trailer the Spyder up to Salinas. Safer that way. Break in the engine slowly. But Dean has a different idea. He wants to drive it. He wants to feel the road. He convinces Rolf to come with him. They will make a day of it. Stop for lunch. Get to Salinas before dark. Simple. At 1:30 p.m., they leave Competition Motors in Hollywood. Dean is wearing a white t-shirt, red windbreaker, and blue jeans. Rolf is in mechanic's overalls. Behind them in a Ford station wagon, Dean's friend Bill Hickman follows with the trailer hitched. Just in case, the sun is hot. The sky is California blue. Dean is grinning behind the wheel like a kid on Christmas morning. He has no idea he has 5 hours left to live. They drive north. The Spyder handles like a dream. Low to the ground. Responsive. Fast. Dean is in heaven. Every curve, every straightaway, he pushes just a little harder, testing the limits, testing himself. At 3:30 p.m., they stop at Blackwell's Corner, a tiny gas station and diner in the middle of nowhere. Dean stretches his legs, buys an apple, drinks a Coke. He is recognized immediately. A few locals ask for autographs. Dean obliges. He is polite, friendly even. But you can see it in his body language. He wants to get back on the road. While they are stopped, a car pulls up. A photographer, his name is Sanford Roth. He has been following Dean for a magazine piece. He snaps a few photos, Dean leaning against the Spyder, Dean eating his apple, Dean checking the engine with Rolf. These will be the last photographs ever taken of James Dean alive. Roth asks if he can ride along. Dean says no, there is no room. Roth understands. He waves goodbye and watches the Spyder disappear up Highway 466. At 3:45 p.m., Dean gets pulled over, speeding, 65 and a 55. The highway patrolman recognizes him but does not care. He writes the ticket. Dean takes it without complaint. The officer warns him to slow down. Dean nods, says he will. He does not. Back on the road, Dean opens it up. The Spyder roars. Rolf glances at the speedometer. 85, 90. Rolf does not speak much English, but he knows fear in any language. He makes a calming gesture with his hand. Slow down. Dean just smiles. Quick question. Have you ever had a secret that was eating you alive? Let us know in the comments. By 5:30 p.m., they are approaching Shalom. A nothing intersection in the middle of rolling hills, Highway 466 and Highway 41. A stop sign, a few farmhouses. That is it. Traffic is light. The sun is starting its slow descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the asphalt. Dean is doing over 90 miles per hour. Ahead, a black and white Ford Tudor is waiting to turn left onto Highway 466. The driver is Donald Turnupseed, 23 years old, yet fake Tal Poly student, heading home for the weekend. He sees the Spyder coming, but in the fading light, with the silver paint and the low profile, it is hard to judge the speed. Turnupseed thinks he has time. He starts his turn. Dean sees it, the Ford pulling directly into his path. He has maybe 3 seconds. Rolf sees it too. He braces. Dean does not brake. He downshifts. He tries to go around, but there is no room. In the final second, as the distance closes to nothing, Dean turns his head to Rolf. His hands are locked on the wheel. His face is calm, eerily calm, and he speaks. 7 words. Then impact. The sound is apocalyptic. Metal tearing, glass exploding. The crunch of fiberglass and steel folding in on itself like paper. The Spyder hits the Ford side at a 45-degree angle. The front end disintegrates. The car does not roll. It does not flip. It just stops, instantly, violently, 50 miles per hour to 0 in a fraction of a second. Physics is merciless. Dean's body is thrown forward. The steering column crushes into his chest. His neck snaps. Death is instantaneous. He does not suffer. At least not physically, but in that final second, in that frozen moment before the crash, what goes through a man's mind? What does he see? What does he know? Rolf Wütherich is ejected. The force of the impact launches him out of the passenger side like a rag doll. He flies through the air and lands 30 feet away in the dirt. His jaw is shattered. His legs are broken. His skull is fractured. But he is conscious. Barely is conscious. Turnupseed's Ford spins. It ends up facing the wrong direction, crumpled but intact. Turnupseed climbs out. He is dazed, scratched, but alive. He stumbles toward the wreckage, and that is when he sees it. The Spyder is unrecognizable. The entire front half is gone. Just twisted metal and exposed engine. And there, still strapped in the driver's seat, is James Dean. His head is tilted forward. His eyes are closed. There is no blood. Not much anyway. He looks like he is sleeping. But he is not sleeping. Turnupseed falls to his knees, starts shaking. He does not know what to do. There are no cell phones, no radios, just empty highway and the sound of hissing steam from the engines. A car approaches, then another. People stop. A farmer runs to call for help from the nearest phone, 2 miles away. Someone covers Dean with a jacket. Someone else kneels beside Rolf, who is moaning in German, trying to speak, trying to say something. The ambulance arrives at 6:20 p.m., 35 minutes after the crash. The medics check Dean first. One of them feels for a pulse, checks his pupils, looks at his partner and shakes his head. James Dean is pronounced dead at the scene. They turn to Rolf. He is in bad shape, but he is alive. They load him onto a stretcher. As they lift him into the ambulance, he keeps repeating something, a phrase, over and over. The medics do not understand German, so they ignore it. They just want to get him to the hospital. Rolf is taken to War Memorial Hospital in Paso Robles. He is in and out of consciousness. His injuries are severe. Fractured skull, broken jaw, both femurs shattered, internal bleeding. The doctors do not know if he will make it through the night, but he does. For 3 days, Rolf drifts in a morphine haze. When he finally wakes, when he can finally speak, the police are waiting. They have questions. What happened? How fast were you going? Did Dean see the other car? Rolf tells them. Slowly, painfully, through wired jaws and swollen lips. Yes, Dean saw the car. Yes, they were going fast, too fast. But there is something else, something Rolf needs them to understand. In the final second, Dean spoke. The officers lean in. What did he say? Down. Rolf closes his eyes. The memory is already haunting him. He can still hear Dean's voice, calm, resigned, almost peaceful. Dean said, "That guy's got to see us." 7 words, a statement, not a question, not a plea, just a simple observation, a hope, a prayer. That guy's got to see us. But Turnupseed did not see them, not in time, and now James Dean is dead. The officers write it down. They file the report, and then slowly, quietly, the story gets buried. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but Hollywood has an image to protect. Warner Brothers has films to release. A Rebel Without a Cause is premiering in 3 weeks. Giant is still being finished. And finished. The studio cannot afford a narrative that suggests Dean was reckless, that he was speeding, that he gambled with his life and lost. So the focus shifts. Turnupseed is blamed. The intersection is blamed. The fading light is blamed. Rolf's testimony is acknowledged but not publicized. The media runs with the tragedy, the loss, the shock. But Dean's last words, they get lost in the noise. Rolf tries to speak out. He does interviews. He tells reporters what Dean said. He explains that Dean was not being reckless. He was confident. He believed they would be seen. He believed Turnupseed would stop. But nobody wants to hear it. The legend of James Dean, the rebel, the risk-taker, the man who lived fast and died young, that story is already being written. And Rolf's truth does not fit the narrative. Rolf Wütherich spends 6 months recovering. When he is finally released, he is not the same man. Physically, he heals. The bones mend, the scars fade. But mentally, emotionally, he is destroyed. He returns to Germany. He tries to move on. He works. He marries. He has a life. But the crash follows him. Everywhere he goes, people ask about James Dean. They want to know what it was like. They want details. They want stories. And Rolf, God help him, he tries to give them the truth. But the truth is not what they want. In 1967, 12 years after the crash, Rolf does an interview with a German magazine. He talks about Dean's last words. He talks about the guilt. He reveals something he has never said publicly before. He thinks Dean knew. In that final second, Dean knew they were going to crash. And he accepted it. The interview is translated. It appears in a few American magazines. But again, it does not gain traction. By 1967, James Dean has been dead longer than he was famous. The legend is complete. The myth is sealed. Nobody wants to rewrite it. Rolf spirals. He drinks. He cannot hold a job. His marriage falls apart. In 1981, 26 years after the crash, Rolf Wütherich is killed in a car accident in Germany. He is driving drunk. He hits a wall. Just like Dean, he dies instantly. Some people call it poetic justice. Others call it tragic. But those who knew Rolf, they call it inevitable. The man never escaped September 30th, 1955. He carried it with him every day, and in the end, it killed him. For decades, Rolf's testimony remained a footnote, but in the 1990s, a researcher named Warren Beath started digging. He interviewed everyone still alive who was connected to the crash. Police officers, medics, witnesses. He tracked down the original accident reports, and he found Rolf's interview transcripts. Beath published a book, The Death of James Dean. In it, he laid out the full story. The speed, the conditions, the last word, and he came to a conclusion that shocked even hardcore Dean fans. James Dean was not being reckless. He was being confident. Overly confident, yes, but not suicidal, not careless. He genuinely believed Turnupseed would see them. The book reignited the conversation. Suddenly, people were talking about Rolf again, about his testimony, about the burden he carried, and slowly, painfully, the narrative began to shift. In 2005, on the 50th anniversary of the crash, a memorial was erected at the intersection. It includes a plaque with Dean's last words. "That guy's got to see us." Finally, after half a century, Rolf's truth was being acknowledged. But here is the part that breaks your heart. Rolf never lived to see it. He died believing he had failed Dean, that nobody believed him. That the world would forever see his friend as a reckless kid who got what was coming. And that is the real tragedy. James Dean lived 24 years. He starred in 3 films. He existed in the public consciousness for less than 18 months. And yet, 70 years later, we are still talking about him, still analyzing him, still mourning him. Why? Because James Dean represented something pure. He was rebellion without malice. Vulnerability without weakness. He showed a generation of young people that it was okay to feel, to hurt, to not have all the answers. And his death? It only amplified that. He became eternal. forever young, forever misunderstood. But what about Rolf, the man who survived? The man who carried Dean's last words like a stone around his neck? What about his story? Rolf Wütherich was not a celebrity. He was not an icon. He was just a mechanic who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and for that he paid with his entire life. He spent 26 years trying to honor his friend, trying to tell the truth, trying to set the record straight, and the world ignored him. That is the hidden history. That is the forgotten story. James Dean's last words were not a joke. They were not a premonition. They were a simple human hope. He wanted to be seen. He wanted to live. But fate had other plans. So here is my question for you. If you knew your last words would define you forever, what would you say? Think about that. Really think about it. James Dean said, that guy's got to see us. And Rolf Wütherich made sure we heard it, even if it took 50 years, even if it cost him everything. Cost him everything. And unfortunately, they don't make men like James Dean anymore, or men like Rolf Wütherich who loved the truth more than his own peace.